Record this computer. Okay, welcome to our Empathy Cafe. We're going to go for 2 hours, and we have our topic to talk about what is a culture of empathy, but you can also talk about anything that's alive for you. And I'm getting a little bit of background noise. Yeah, thanks, Robin. That was maybe a computer fan or something. So we want to get started with just doing, just a short introduction, your name, where you're from, maybe why you're interested in empathy circles. I can start. Edwin Rutsch. I started the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy and been working on the topic of empathy, exploring it for about 12, 13 years. And I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, just north of Berkeley, California. And Bill, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Bill. I'm a retired special education teacher here in Northern California, member of the Empathy team, and taking the XR facilitators training.
Okay, and Bjorn?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bjorn. I'm originated in Germany, but I'm living in UK at the moment, an hour north of London. And I'm still quite new at XR, but I did a cycling tour last year and was doing a lot of stuff around the subject of empathy. And I'm really interested in this subject. And I'm also starting actually a podcast next month about this subject as well. So yeah. So it's a lot of stuff I think I can learn from here today.
Oh, great. Richard?
I'm Richard. I'm originally from the Netherlands. And at the moment, I'm most of the time in Berlin and Leipzig. I have a background in nonviolent communication. And kind of what brings me here is that I feel that there is quite some stuff going on in the world. And also for me, a way to connect with people from different parts of the world and feel like one, or feel like, feel where the rest of humanity is, kind of with events that are happening around the world.
Okay, great. Robin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, and I've been learning and teaching NVC for 3 or so years, and I've been a trainer for about 20 years in other capacities. I also work for a community solar company trying to combat climate change with getting people involved in solar. I just went to the XR website last night for the first time. I'd heard about it. I had no idea what it was, so I'm excited to learn more. I'm not going to be able to stay too long because I have an appointment. I didn't realize it was going to be such a small, intimate group.
Okay. Well, glad you could make it. And
thank you.
That's fine if you need to drop out at some point. Okay, I just wanted to do sort of a check on how much familiar you are with the empathy circle practice. Have you watched the video, sort of the introduction? I just want to know how much I need to introduce it.
I have not done that. I didn't get a chance, and I saw that you had requested that, so I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't come on, but here I am. So, but I've done empathy, obviously, live and taught it, but I don't know your process.
Okay, so yeah, then you must be quite familiar with, if you're doing NVC, then we're just doing empathic listening or active listening. One person will be the speaker. They'll select who they speak to. And that person, you speak, a few ideas, and then you pause, let the listener reflect back what they're hearing, to your satisfaction, then speak some more, and you get a reflection. So it goes back and forth like that. It's pretty standard empathic listening or active listening. We do have like time limits, like you get 5 minutes or until you feel like if you don't have anything else to say, you can say, I feel fully heard. And that just means it's the listener's turn to become the speaker, and then they select who they're going to speak to. And we just continue with the process like that. And everybody gets up to 5 minute turns. We do have a general topic, which is what is your vision of a culture of empathy? If empathy was a primary social cultural value, what was the vision of what are the different values and principles and you know, what would the world be like if that was the case? And we had just done a poll. Maybe I'll just show that real quick. So this poll, you know, we just asked that question, share your vision of a culture of empathy. This was in our Extinction Rebellion Empathy Circle work group. And so people just kind of filled out what they thought, you know, what the values would be of a culture of empathy. And the top one was moving from competition to collaboration, moving from separation to integration, and so forth. So there's a whole series of different sort of ideas people had. So we wanted to discuss that, or just anything that's alive for you, so you don't even have to stay on topic if you have something else you want to talk about. And there is a bit of a background noise, Robin, so maybe you could mute if you're, I think what it is, I think with Richard too, there's, if you don't have a headset, that if it's on a laptop, it sometimes picks up the fan noise, and we hear that. So it's really great if you have earbuds and you know, a headset, but that's okay if you don't. Just mute.
With my earbuds, for some reason, nobody can hear me.
Okay.
But I think you might just hear my breathing or something when I do that. Anyway.
Sometimes there's a little bit of now it's quiet. It wasn't your breathing. It was, I think it was a little fan noise.
I don't hear a fan, but okay. Oh. I'll keep it muted.
Okay, so we can just jump right into it, and perhaps just to model it, or if somebody wants to speak to me, perhaps Richard, would you be willing to start and just speak to me, and then I'll model it, and Bill, would you be willing to keep the time? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so one thing that I've, can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, hear you well. Mm-hmm.
So what I sense what's valuable for me, kind of, I noticed there are quite some things going on in the world, like the fires in Australia and also the whole thing in Iraq. There is a part of me that's really, in a way, looking for meaning. What does it mean? What effect does it have for me?
Okay, so you're seeing these different things that are happening in the world, the fires in Iraq, what's going on, I mean, fires in Australia, what happened in Iraq with the shooting. And so you're searching for meaning, like what is the meaning of all this?
So it's meaning and connection. And I'm also looking, my strategy now is that I'm kind of really going around on social media and trying to see what other people think, where I see a lot of, kind of, let's say, a lot of things that I don't find so much empathy. So kind of, instead of searching for that connection, I find mere the opposite, kind of, okay, there is a lot of struggle and people almost shouting at each other and people desperate so I see that my strategy at the moment is I use social media to somehow get connection with the bigger humanity or so. And I notice that strategy is not working because in a way I get overloaded with emotions, and in social media there doesn't seem to be this facility or this ability to process or to go deeper in a way. It kind of it's.
Okay, so you're searching for meaning and understanding and connection. You've been using social media for that, and you're finding that it doesn't really work, that it doesn't, you don't really go deeper, and it's not a good way to really process sort of meaning.
And I also had the feeling today, of actually yesterday, like, oh, I'm gonna have an empathy circle again. And I noticed I'm like, okay, how can we kind of make that actual, kind of, how can I connect with people from Australia, kind of, how are they, you know?
Mm-hmm. So you'd like
also,
people.
And also, how does it affect other people, and kind of seeing from this common feeling or this common sense of felt emotions, like maybe, okay, what can come out of that?
So you were thinking you'd be here in an empathy circle, and you were hoping you could connect with people from Australia to sort of connect with them and see if there's some kind of a common feeling, or I wasn't quite clear what.
Yeah, or in a way connect to some kind of collective feeling body or so. I have the impression that the things that are happening, they're happening at a global scale. I see with me lots of people are kind of going on social media and expressing their helplessness and their support for Australia, expressing their fear and their kind of anger when it comes to Iraq, or when it comes, and I have the sense like, these are things that I cannot solve on my own, that probably nobody can solve on its own, and also feeling that like what we're doing now with social media, it's not really going to work. And somehow I feel that empathy circles or ways where people connect with each other could mean something.
So you're thinking, you're seeing that perhaps doing these empathy circles, you can find some meaningful connection and sort of positive versus just the general social media where people are just sharing fears and anxieties and maybe yelling at each other.
And also kind of in a way, it feels almost like in this NVC model, of kind going from feelings to needs, kind of in a way, I feel this need or this urge that I want to connect with the feeling body of humanity or planet Earth, so to say, and also search for, hey, well, what is the need? How can we turn that into feeling need request? And how can we put it into action? So, but action coming from kind of a lived feeling or a lived emotion, and not kind of the social media eruption of emotions.
So you're looking for how to kind of connect to the feelings and the needs of what's happening, and also the action that comes out of that, versus kind of these raw feelings that come up in social media in general. So it sounds like kind of a desire for more feelings and needs and connecting to the emotions behind it.
And also something like processing or transforming, kind of. Now I have the impression that, there is one continent basically on fire, and then kind of we're all telling on social media how much we are involved or not, and if it's, but it feels like it's eruptions or so. It's not processed, or it's not. It doesn't go anywhere or so. It gets only, things stay as they are, so to say. And I have the impression that in a way, by connecting people across different parts of the world and somehow with empathy kind of connect, that there is some power to discover there.
Yeah, so right now there's sort of just these eruptions in social media, and people aren't really connecting and sort of processing and moving through these different feelings. You see that empathy circles could be a way of kind of a deeper connection, a deeper processing of feelings. Okay, great. Then I think that was the time Bill had.
I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I'll speak to Bill just to model it.
Listening?
I was glad that Robin has a background in NVC, and I was just wanting to mention that naming feelings and needs is also part of this. If that's something that someone wants to do in terms of the reflection, to name feelings and needs, which NVC really focuses on. So I just want to share that.
So you were gratified that Robin has a background in NVC, and that growing out of that is identifying feelings and needs, which is very important.
Yeah, and then Richard mentioned that too, so I did want to just point that out.
Okay, so you're finding that maybe if we talk about, or people have feelings and needs that come up, that might be instrumental and instructive.
And the topic here was building a culture of empathy, and I think that that's part of of the whole picture, is having a vision of where we want to go to. In terms of, we live in this culture what is the type of culture we want to live in? And for me, it is a culture of empathy, a culture that values that mutual empathy and that sensitivity to felt experience. And so I do want to sort of, frame, just kind of bring that out.
So you were saying that, in trying to express a vision of the culture of empathy, you feel that it's very important that people talk about, feelings and needs and things like that. And delving into that can give a perspective that can make people grow towards a culture of empathy.
Yeah, and I also want to welcome Eva and Sinead, who are familiar with the practice. So I just want to
And you want to welcome our newcomers.
Yeah, and I think shortly Carolina will join us too. So I created that poll, about what people see as the value of, the underlying principles. Like, we have a culture of empathy where empathy is a primary social value. What are the different principles that sort of make up that culture? And I was surprised that so far, at least in this group, that it was moving from competition to collaboration was the number one sort of value that people were kind of highlighting.
Okay, so in presenting various alternatives as to what would be the, like a benchmark of a culture of empathy, you were surprised that moving from competition to collaboration was number one.
And the second one was separation to integration. And that's what I see these empathy circles is sort of an integrative process. Like, we each get to share where we are, what we're feeling, and it integrates us into sort of this larger whole. So I see that as another, core piece of a culture of empathy, is that integrative quality versus a domination or a separation.
Okay. So the second thing was the moving from, it was like competition. It was integration, moving from isolation to integration. So you feel that that's also very important. And then there's a theme there, and it's to be built on and to be expressed more clearly.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. Okay. Bjorn, would you listen to me? If you're ready?
Yeah, okay.
Great, thank you. Well, we've been talking about a culture of empathy, and we were on a call. It has a kind of like a, what would I say? Interesting title. It was called The Sense-Making Wormhole. And so in the sense-making wormhole, what we were talking about is, what does reason feel like? And what I got out of that call is how much reason, supposedly just cognitive and objective, depends upon a solid emotional base. And I'll stop there.
I'm not sure if I get.
Sure, yeah, I can. Basically, in contemplating reason, I was struck by the fact how much emotion plays a part in reason.
So why do you? What brings you to that summary?
So just reflect what I said, and
okay.
Yeah.
It's quite.
Okay, this is not a contest. I'll try again. Just simply.
I don't.
Yeah. So no problem. This is about building bridges, not contests. So there's no right or wrong here. And essentially, what I learned as a special education teacher is there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
And what that told me is how much reason has to sit on a firm emotional base. And that's it.
So when I look at it, I think.
Oh, Bjorn, can I help you here for a second? All you need to do is reflect back what you hear Bill say. You can just say, oh, so reason, I mean, feeling is very important to reason, or is a foundation of reason, or something like that. Just what did you hear Bill say? Just reflect back kind of the essence of what he said. What did you hear Bill say?
So okay, okay, yeah, it's really so far really familiar that way of thinking.
Yeah, it takes a little bit to kind of get familiar with the practice.
So as far as I understand, you saying that there is some sort of pressure on the base, or what you've
He can say it again.
Okay.
If
Sure.
you
Yeah.
just
Again, it's
say
about
it very simply, and then we just get a simple reflection.
That reason is based on emotional stability.
So if you just reflect that back, I'm hearing emotion is based, I mean, reason is based on emotional stability. So you're just sharing, reflecting back what it is you're hearing Bill say. Do you want to just reflect that back?
I don't know why, but it's really
okay. Well, maybe I'll talk to somebody else for a little bit.
Maybe. Thank you. That would
and that's fine. And by the way, I just want to say again, it's not. I was very interested. I would love to have that conversation that you were talking about. So it's not a rejection of that. It's just a kind of a practicing of the, So you'll catch it up. Okay, Eva, would you listen to me? Okay. So, hi, how you doing? So anyway, so just to pick up is that when we talk about these, we're talking about moving from isolation to integration. We talk about moving from competition to cooperation. All those are the same. And I believe that then reason needs to rest. Good reason needs to rest on a solid emotional foundation. I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. Bill, I hear you say isolation okay, I can't read my handwriting there.
Right.
The competition, cooperation,
right.
They seem to be, I hear you saying they seem to be kind of the same thing, but again, I hear you say reasoning would be more effective if it was based on emotions.
Well, it's needed. What I'm saying is that it's been scientifically established. Like when my students came to school, if I wanted them to learn, I had to make sure they had breakfast. I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. So me reflecting the reason is based on emotional stability in a little bit more like an uncertain way. I think you corrected me there, and you reminded me, like, it's scientifically proven that reason is based on emotional stability. And as a special ed teacher, you gave an example of like a student you have is supposed to have a breakfast to have a good learning experience.
Right. And so a culture of empathy, what I see in a culture of empathy, and I'll finish up quickly here, because is that it takes what I think is a seeming paradox, the individual versus society, and starts to integrate them. in that the society should, I think, this is my opinion, that society should support the individual in their growth, and that the individual, a healthy individual who is growing in that society, would understand and be in harmony and contribute to the community. So the larger society supports the individual, and then the individual supports the larger society. I'll stop there.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, we lost Eva. Okay.
okay, perhaps I can reflect that,
Sure.
that back. So what I'm hearing is that you're seeing that in a culture of empathy, the individual supports the larger culture, and the larger culture supports the individual. So it's like mutual support.
That's correct. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Well, Bjorn, would you like to speak to me, and I can just sort of model the empathic listening? So just whatever's up for you, and I'll just model it.
I try.
Okay. So I hear you're going to try. No, I'm going to do the listening. I'm hearing that you're going to try.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to Bjorn right now, Eva, so we'll come back to you.
So regarding building a culture of empathy, I think that for me, it was not a big surprise that the outcome of the questionnaire was in that direction. I hear these things many people saying quite regularly, and I quite strongly feel this, especially number one, feeling in a constant competition with other people all the time. I think particularly probably it is something what Richard also feels on social media, and I think this puts some pressure on each of us. And
can I reflect that back? So what I'm hearing, Bjorn, is that you're not surprised that this moving from competition to cooperation was number one, because you're seeing that in the society, and it also sort of relates with what Richard was saying too.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, what's really important is to figure out together with other people and to connect how we can go from that competitive place to the cooperative place. I think we have cooperative activities already, but we're not living in a cooperative society.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is that you're really looking at how do we go from this competitive to a cooperative society, and that the society in general isn't very cooperative, but you're looking at how do we create more cooperation?
Yeah, actually not like how do we create more cooperation, because as I said, I think that we have already quite a few cooperative things, but how can we transform to a society that behaves rather cooperative than competitive? I think
so it's kind of like more the broader culture. How do we shift the whole culture to move it from this competition to cooperation? There's already a lot of cooperation going on, but kind of changing the overall kind of values of the culture.
Yes, that would be for me personally. That's my point, my view. Building a culture of empathy. Yeah.
So that would be the kind of the task, was how do we kind of shift that larger culture?
Yeah.
Is there more?
No, I think at the moment
you feel heard. Okay. Are you there, Sinead? I'll speak to you. Oh no, wait, sorry. It would be Eva's turn since you had reflected at the end. So I was just, so your turn to select someone.
I'd like to first continue with reflecting Bill's opinion. Is that okay?
Oh, he was just finished, so then it was your turn.
Okay.
And I ended the reflection because you dropped the connection. So
Okay. So yeah, my apologies. I'm having a chaotic day. I just finished up with a client, and Zoom is not a best friend of mine today. So can I
think Carolina and Sinead haven't spoken.
Yeah.
Are you there, Sinead? I'm not seeing you. We're not seeing you. Or oh, there you are. Okay.
I am there. Yeah, I was traveling, but I was listening as well. So
Okay.
I'm just back in. So
Sinead, can I ask you to reflect my ideas? Can you talk?
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Go ahead. Thanks.
I'm hearing a lot of words and sentences that I am super interested and makes me feel hopeful and good about myself. Building the culture of empathy, feelings, needs, and defining empathy. I am just, as a personal need, I want to know what I can do when I see that a continent is burning now under fire. So I want to have a clear agenda in my mind on where to start. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Something about the words that you're hearing around building a culture of empathy, and paying attention to feelings and needs. And is it that you want to be hopeful about that, and at the same time you're aware that a continent is burning? Is that what you meant? Like, and that's intensely.
Yeah, that's the first, that was the explanation. And I wanted to add to that, like, when I see a crisis, I want to know, I want to have an agenda for myself on where to start. What do I do now? Do I tweet about it? Do I think about it? Or do I talk to a friend about it? Or maybe I need a better way to make me feel good and have a better outcome.
Yeah, so you're kind of like, what do I do in this? There's building culture of empathy. There's a continent burning. What's my own role? Like, do I tweet, talk? Where do I even start with this?
Mm-hmm.
As well.
Yeah. And with building a culture of empathy and in a sharing circle like this, maybe I want to go easy and stay in a comfort zone and hear people give me an opinion on maybe opinion on, like, what do I need to feel good about myself and feel good about my being? What can I do for that part of the world which is really away from me, and I don't know too much about that issue, that problem in the world, but I want to care and I want to be effective in a way.
So there's one part of you that wonders, am I just trying to stay in my comfort zone here? Is this work that I'm doing around the building a culture of empathy, is that me just doing something that makes me feel good, and I can hear what I want to hear, or you know, does that really affect, you know, what you care? You maybe you feel a little disconnected in a way from what's happening so far away in Australia, and you're kind of wondering if how can you connect to that? How can you be effective? Make some difference for that? There's some part of you that does care about that.
Yeah. And last but not least, I feel hopeful and I am happy to be here. At least I have a feeling that at least I'm talking about it in Empathy Circle today.
Yeah, so just talking about it, that's something. And that gives you some kind of hope. Even just bringing it up is paying some attention, giving some energy to the problem.
Thank you. Hope. I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to look at the participant list. Carolina? You haven't had a turn yet.
Everyone. Hello, everyone. Yes, I can listen to you.
Thanks, Carolina. So, yeah, the topic being building a culture of empathy. And yeah, I can relate to what Eva was saying. Like, here we are in our little comfort zone and our little small, very small group of people who are on the call, interested in this topic. And is that a comforting thing, or or is it more of a like, where the fuck is everyone else? And you know, like wondering, are we so far away from it? While not only is a continent burning there, the Amazon is burning, nobody's talking about it. Yeah, lots of people getting killed. World War III potentially, like, you know, the Trump deciding to bomb the, you know, Iraqi general last night, you know, randomly, and you're like, fuck, you know. Building a culture of empathy, are we? How far away are we?
I'm afraid
your audio is breaking up. Maybe you could turn your video off for more band. Can you turn your video off? Just it gives you more bandwidth. I can try stopping it.
Jeanette, can I reflect what I heard?
Yeah. Like Carolina.
Ouch, 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 ouch. What now? I have no person to reflect back. Oh.
You could just reflect to the room, and then I guess it'd be your turn.
Okay. Well, I hope she will come back. So what I heard, that Jeanette feels like there is a ridiculous gap between small group of people here in this room talking about culture of empathy and trying to build culture of empathy, when there is the whole world that is kind of showing up the lack of empathy. A lot of events happening that are sort of symptoms of lack of empathy. And she recalled it, fires in Australia, in Amazonia, bombarding in Iraq, and many other issues. in general that are sort of symptoms of crisis of empathy in our everyday life, which is our personal life or maybe political, social life. Oh, yeah. Jeanette, are you hearing me? Do you hear me? Are you hearing me? Hello? Hello?
You're
Jeanette,
muted.
you are muted. You are muted, Jeanette.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, just a moment.
So I will try reflect
Do you
that.
want to move on to someone else, or
Carolina reflected you, I think. Do you want to continue some more, Sinead?
Oh, well, Sheena didn't hear me, so I'm not sure what to do.
Maybe she could just continue since we...
Yeah, I didn't hear.
You're
Pardon?
breaking. We don't hear you, Jeanette.
Yeah, I think... Sinead, is it okay if we move on? So I think we're not hearing you. Do you...
It's hard to say, but probably I should move on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can't, I'll be honest, I didn't feel heard there, but maybe just move on. I've moved places, but like if Carolina wants to speak to someone else, then you can try me the next time.
Your connection is better. It
right.
it suddenly got a lot better. So do you want to try speaking again? Do you want to speak some more and try reflection?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have gotten any reflection there at all. So, I mean, yeah, if I try speaking again. So I guess what I was saying was, I kind of, I know the question is how can we build a culture of empathy, but I'm a little feeling just momentarily a little maybe overwhelmed by how far away we are from that. When I see, it's okay to come into this small, very tiny bubble of people here, and at the same time, I'm aware of the, that Trump just bombed, the general of Iraq last night, and several continents are on fire, but we're only talking about the white Westerner that speaks English, and
So what I'm
we're
hearing,
pretty much miles away.
So what I'm hearing, you feel kind of a huge, ridiculous gap between what we are doing here in a small group of people and the reality out there in a world we live in. You're talking about fires, you're talking about bombarding, you're talking about a lot of political and social issues that are symptoms of lack of empathy, and it seems to you kind of ridiculous, this difference between what's happening in the world and what we're trying to accomplish here. Is that what you mean?
Not at all. No, I don't mean that it's ridiculous. No, I wouldn't say that. No, I don't think it's ridiculous. It's just overwhelming. I just want to, no, it's not ridiculous. There's another part of me that's just one part that will be overwhelmed by and scared and I guess maybe even a bit angry or exhausted, fatigued. by the war, you know, not just any social events. It's like a really specific thing happened last night, and there are really specific things happening around the world right now, and those specific things matter right
You
now to
again a
me.
lot breaking, but
But I
you
don't feel that this is ridiculous either, what we're doing, you know.
okay. Okay, so you correcting me that you don't mean ridiculous at all. You rather mean overwhelming. So it's not contradiction, but kind of a huge difference between what we are doing and what's happening in the world is sort of overwhelming, making you sad, overwhelmed, and kind of I don't know. It creates some difficult emotions in you. That's what you mean? Painful emotions.
Yeah. Sorry. I can imagine that.
Sinead,
Yes.
the connection is
Yeah.
the connection is so bad. I think
Yeah.
we need to move on. Is that okay? Because it just keeps breaking up, and
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
okay.
I was going to say the same thing. Totally. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool.
Thank you. I'm not sure because I jumped in the middle of the meeting, so I don't know who wasn't speaking yet.
Richard hasn't spoken in a while.
Okay, so maybe Richard, you would reflect me.
Yeah, sure.
I just end the meeting, another meeting that began earlier, and it was meeting about leadership. And I'm wondering what is leadership in culture of empathy, and especially in context of conflict. So I start asking myself, what is leadership? And another thing, how conflict is placed in culture of empathy, and how those two things, leadership and conflicts, relate to each other, how they work together in culture of empathy. That's what I'm wondering about.
So what I hear is that you come from another meeting, a meeting that was about leadership, and that you're now, when you're in this meeting, you're also kind of wondering how leadership fits into a culture of empathy. Also guessing that you have some ideas that you brought from the other meeting and that you are kind of seeing how they would fit in a culture of empathy. And also that specifically on the context of conflict, that you're also curious, like, okay, how would what kind of the leadership and conflict, how would that work within a culture of empathy?
So what I think about leadership, I always have problem with leadership and being in a position of the leader that sometimes happened to me in my life, in my activity. And I'm thinking about leadership as a service to others. And it requires a very specific attitude, focusing on others. It's kind of, yeah, it's serving others. It's not being in a position upper than others. It's rather being in a position lower than others for me. And such a leadership requires a lot of empathy abilities to hear others, their needs, their feelings, being sensitive to others. It's very empathic definition of leadership, I think.
So what I hear is that you that leadership has some from the past, that it has some how do you say that?
Serving?
You have some special relation with leadership from the past that you're now.
Yeah, I was a leader. Sometimes I was a leader, so I have such experience in my life. Yeah.
Mhm. And what I hear now is that you like this definition that leadership is kind of servicing, that it's not above people, but it's almost like supporting from the
Yeah.
bottom,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you also see by supporting other people, by carrying from the bottom other people, that it also requires a lot of empathy, and that empathy skills are really
Yeah.
essential in that case.
Yeah. And the serving for me, it's kind of organizing conditions for others to be efficient, and that's the service I understand. So if there is a group of people, they can efficiently achieve their goals, our common goals, thanks to good leadership or that serves this purpose, organize kind of conditions for achieving purposes, common purposes. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I hear is that it's that you see leadership also as some as a function that creates conditions where other people can thrive.
Yeah. That's what I mean by serving. And when I think about conflict, lately I was thinking about conflict as well. I wasn't trying to define conflict. I was thinking that in culture of empathy, we need a safety space for conflict. I was thinking about conflict as misunderstanding or mistake, but in a former meeting, I heard about conflict as a gap in a system that doesn't support efficient acting of people, that there is a gap and it creates a kind of lack of support for people in a particular situation. Okay, I hear that. So conflict is the system failure, not people attitude. That's the main idea, probably.
What I hear from you is that when you talk about conflict, that conflicts don't need to be necessarily solved, but that there is
No. That's not what I meant. I meant that culture of empathy should be a safe space for solving conflict. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we do not avoid conflicts, but we try to create a safe space for dealing with them.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear is that you, within a culture of empathy, you would see like creating a safe space where people can almost like express their conflict.
Yeah, and maybe solve.
And maybe solve by expressing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also heard you say something about a gap.
In the system, yeah.
That there is a gap in the system.
Well, I don't want to prolong. Yeah, I won't prolong. So maybe next round, okay? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Richard.
Jörn, would you like to reflect me?
Yes.
So I think one thing that I would like to share is a story that kind of deeply inspired me about I think 10 years ago or so, or maybe 7 years ago. And that story kind of, I noticed recently that story comes up again. So if you like, you can reflect something that you heard.
Okay. So you're saying that there was a story coming up again in your mind that you would like to share with us because it's meaningful to you and maybe becomes meaningful for us.
And the story kind of, I heard it from the writer himself. He was announcing it, and when he read the story or parts of the story at that time, it was also his voice. There was something in his voice that made me, I got tears in my eyes, and I was deeply touched by the story.
So I'm hearing you saying that you felt deeply connected with that story and with the storyteller as well.
Yeah. And the story that he told was about a white blood cell who was living in the human body, kind of as a fantasy or fictional story. And that someday, kind of the white blood cell hears that there is cancer in the body. And the first reaction of the white blood cell is that he doesn't know what to do. He's watching television and he feels that he has to go out, but he doesn't know really what to do. So first there is this sense of, okay, I don't know what to do, but I must have some purpose or something.
So you're saying that the white cell is some sort of confused personality, maybe?
And also I like this metaphor that he is in the bone marrow watching television and seeing all the bad things that are happening in the body. And then at some point he goes traveling through the body, and then there's a very touching part where he comes through the heart because he's in a blood cell, so he travels through the blood system. And he hears a voice, and he cannot really distinguish that, but the voice is telling basically like, hey, I love you, you are beautiful. And he is surprised where the voice comes from. And at some point he finds out that it's the heart of the human body, that it's the voice. And then at some point, there is some story in between, but at some point he gets a little crown because he's so beautiful, and kind of the heart gives him a little crown so that he travels around the body. He can do that with the crown.
So you're trying to maybe telling us about that story because you're feeling related to that story in a particular way?
Yeah, I feel definitely related to that story. And also kind of at some point he finds out that if he talks with other cells in the human body, and at some point he finds out that he can share his crown. So if he gives away his crown and basically tells to another cell like, hey, you are beautiful, you get a crown, that he instantly gets a new crown, so that in a way he can give away crowns indefinitely, so to say. And also somewhere in the story it's also kind of told, or it's kind of the interesting thing, like it's this white blood cell where other cells have a very specific meaning. You know, they're working in the brain, or they're working in the liver, and they're working in the stomach, and they all found that they do the most important things. So the brain cells thinks that they're very important because, you know, they take care of the thinking, and the liver cell also take care of the things. And he is one of the cells that's just traveling around and basically having some lymph nodes where he can rest. But that basically that his mission in life is traveling around and helping people to remind of their mission.
So I hear you saying that that story goes in that direction, that with actions and just going the way that just lays in front of you, you find that meaning. And
yeah. also what I find meaningful is that it's kind of, I've long struggled with, kind of, okay, should I also do something useful, so to say, kind of be a liver cell or a stomach cell or a brain cell, do something. But I found also some ease in kind of, it's also a very important function to kind of travel around and connect with people and kind of remind them of their mission or of something important. And I noticed this story also gives me some confidence that that's a use of a meaningful job.
So you're trying to tell us that this story really helps you to not always have the meaning in front of you, but by doing what you are doing, you're trying to create that meaning.
Mm-hmm. And that also, I'm going to finish shortly. I'm also that kind of, for me, this thing of empathy, it's kind of, in a way, it's, for me, empathy also has something, a function of reminding people of things, kind of reminding people of their feelings, reminding people of their needs, reminding people of their connection with themselves, with nature, with, with Mother Earth. And this reminding function, I found that that's, and for me, I see that also, that's the link back to a culture of empathy. I think that's also this something something important in with empathy, kind of, that it is reminding people about connection with meaning, connection with each other, connection with Earth, connection, a reminder of connection.
Are you also saying that possibly some potentially bad things could be also this sort of reminder to go in the right direction or doing meaningful things with the story?
Not exactly, I think. But then there is this interesting aspect, okay, how do you deal with bad things, so to say. But I'll keep that for another time then. Yeah, thank you for reflecting. Yeah.
You fully have?
I'm done, yeah.
Should I go on?
You
Yeah,
select
you
who you'd like to. Yes, select whoever you wish to speak to.
Yeah, Edwin, would you listen to me?
Okay, listening.
Okay. I tried to. I must say that I really like that type of story, and it connected me with some of my own experiences when I firstly thought that something particular was really bad or not good, and when I was hearing the story of Sharon before that, she was seeing all these things happening in the world and confusing and threatening our lives, could be, potentially be something good, what we don't see yet.
Mm-hmm. So you like stories, and especially this aspect that things that we see as maybe negative or bad could actually have a positive quality to them, like what Jeanette is saying about all the terrible things that were happening in the world. Maybe there is some kind of a positive, if you look at it differently, a positive aspect to it.
Yeah, also, and I think I have to add, to make this understanding more complete, is a book I recently read, which is called The Science of Getting Rich. The title sounds really, or sounded for me particularly really awkward in the past. But when I read this book, it was really interesting, because it was quite spiritual. It was far away actually from science. And one of the quotes in that book is, it's all perfect, but not complete. And I really do like this quote, because it shows us how the evolution is working, and that on the one hand we are something big compared to our cells, blood cells, again, are going smaller and smaller and smaller, but we are also at the same time really, really, really tiny compared to the universe and everything. And we all play our part and can only do our best to make the whole thing more complete, but everything is all right complete, although it doesn't look perfect.
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of putting it creates a sense of perspective that that you can everything is, yeah, I'm not quite sure. I got there is, you can see yourself from, you're very small from one perspective, or you're very big from the other. So it's sort of like this quality of perspective, and that that there was something about it. It's, I can't remember what the word was, but it's just not complete, or maybe not seeing the complete picture somehow. I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding that.
I don't know if you all familiar, for example, with films, but one scene in one of the Man in Black films in the 90s, I found really interesting when they zoomed out from the planet, going out to the universe, and then to huge aliens who are playing around with our universe, I think, and we can actually probably also go in the complete opposite, and we don't know yet where it ends, or if it ends somewhere, we don't know, because we humans found out that we can make things even bigger and see new things all the time, especially in the last couple of 100 years, where we made so much progress, and we don't see yet what's possible in the future. And also, if there is no end, we would never, I think it's really difficult. We all struggle, I think, with handling this type of things, because we see these amazing things happening and making visible these days, but at the same time, it feels like disconnecting as well, because we were trying to understanding more and more and more, but we actually know that we will never get to the complete understanding.
So there can be a sense of disconnection, or of not being able to really comprehend the whole, and that you can always look at get a bigger and bigger picture of sort of existence with zooming out of the universe, or you can also sort of infinity zooming out. You can infinity zooming in, so you just have it just feels disconcerting. It can feel disconcerting, just making sense out of all that.
Yes. Yeah. I feel it fully.
Okay. Oh, great. Then I'll speak to Bill, I guess.
Okay, listening.
Yeah, where to go next? Yeah, I think that aspect of the felt experience, like with Bjorn, I was trying to tap into what is the felt experience. And I think that I've thought sometimes that perhaps, when we do the speaking, is to start with the felt experience, to kind of tap more into that feeling. So I was just sort of thinking about the felt experience.
So in contemplating, where you should start to grapple with this issue, you would like to, you're feeling that it's important to start with the felt experience. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I know from my feeling was I felt a little concerned. When we first started, there was like Bjorn was struggling a little bit with the reflection, so I felt a bit kind of concerned, a little tense. And then we had, Sinead with the struggling with the audio. So all those kind of things led to some kind of a little bit of I'm noticing some tension in me, like, stress, trying to get, kind of wanting a need for things to work smoothly and the flow. So
Right. We had a few technical problems at the beginning, and the flow was not quite there, and so that was causing stress for you.
Yeah. So just to name the stress, just, there was some stress, just to be able to name it. And I think I was also getting that from what Richard was talking about, is there's sort of this larger stress and anxieties and fears and all that in the culture, right? With the wars and the fires, and it just brings up all these different feelings.
So you were feeling it was valuable, when you're contemplating everything and what Richard was talking about and all the challenges that we face, is to name it. Say, oh, this is stress. And that helps you kind of, deal with it and just, acknowledge it.
Yes, I think I was maybe getting at how in an empathy circle do I get more into the felt experience of what's going on? Like, how do I settle into the felt experience and share that.
So then you're thinking that in the context of this of empathy circles, then how do you emphasize and how do you get in deeper to the felt experience?
Because the empathy is in feeling, right? It's like feeling into. So the sense of the felt experience is really an important aspect, being able to name that and be comfortable with it. And sometimes I feel very inadequate in terms of, I feel this whole field of felt experience, and it's a bit of a struggle to actually be able to name it. So I feel a little inadequate at just, clearly naming the felt experience that I have.
So you again reinforce the idea that the felt experience is very important. Empathy is feeling into, but sometimes with the various ways that stress and can manifest itself in various different ways, you feel confused about that.
Yeah, a little inadequate. Like I would like to get better at being able to name and have a vocabulary for the different feelings that are going on in my body. I mean, right now I do feel like a sense of spaciousness. Like, I kind of see feelings in the 360-degree field of experience. And in general, it feels very kind of soft and floaty is the feelings that I have. And then there's other feelings that kind of come up within that field.
So you're saying that in this field with around you and the felt experience, you feel kind of floaty, but then there are other, feelings and things like that are harder to identify, and you'd like to be able to identify them.
Yeah, that floatiness feels warm. It feels a little dark, sort of black. It feels gentle, feels comfortable. Yeah, so I'm just trying to name it here.
So the floaty experience is essentially comforting.
Yeah, yeah. And then within the general core of my body is sort of more where the anxiety and the little tensions come up.
And then within the core, so it's sort of in your body. So the other one I get is more of a mental picture mixed with feelings. The other one in your body is where all the stress comes up, and that's.
I would say it's all in my felt experience. It's not a mental. It's just all of it is a whole. It's like a whole field, a whole constellation of constantly shifting, moving feelings.
Okay, so it's all in there, in both the body feelings and then the more conceptual feelings are all in there, and to you don't see a division there. You see it as all part of the lived experience.
More or less, yeah. I feel heard.
Okay, all right. Carolina, are you listening to me?
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. As I find this is very interesting, and I've contemplated and studied this, through my lived experience and also academically. And so I've come to the defining things is a trap. I'll stop there.
So you find the whole as I understand the whole discussion, interesting, and particularly expressing some experience feeling. But what is tricky from your perspective is defining, creating definitions.
Right, or over and define. And I'm not saying that it's bad or I'm disagreeing with Edwin or anything like that. I'm just saying that at a certain point, you can over define things, and actually defining it distorts it.
So the creating definitions, you don't want to make your speech a criticism, but you just want to point different perspective that that defining things might be, as you name it, over defining.
Right.
And that's a tricky moment that might.
Yeah, and so there's a balance. So so it's like I think that at a certain point we have to define things to a certain extent, but we can then go too far, and that distorts it. So and the fact of the matter is that I come from a scientific perspective, and from a scientific perspective, good data is both comprehensive. You have all the data, and then also well organized. And and then also there should be a sort of time frame. So it shouldn't just be a snapshot of this data, but it's a time frame. And if you consider all the stars in the universe and all the atoms, you're never going to get there. So then, but nevertheless, we are. So to me, I resolve it by trying to put myself in the right dynamic situation.
So if I understand you correctly, your perspective is scientific one. And the basis, basics of the science are data. With all the aspects of data, and particularly we have to realize that there is some limitation in space and time of gathering data, and we still need to do science, so to speak, in these limitations.
Well,
That's
we
what
do.
You mean?
Yeah, no, that was great up to the point, but then there's my resolution is that then you put yourself, you realize that I know nothing essentially about the universe, yet I exist, which seems to be a paradox. So it seems to be is to basically just be in the right dynamic. And that's why I like the empathy circles, because I can express my individuality in community with others. And I believe that is a dynamic that is, or a structure that is very strong.
So this situation with science and our limitations leads you to the position that you want to be in dynamic situation. You accept sort of dynamics we live within. And I think I lost something. I'm sorry.
No problem. That was very, yeah. And what I mean by dynamic, and then my time is up, is that like the kind of assumptions that we come to an empathy circle. When we agree to listen to others and we know that we're not going to be, we'll be enhanced, not taken, not lessened by that. That is an example of the sort of dynamic attitude that I think is important to have to build a culture of empathy.
So, if I understand you correctly, Empathy Circle is one of the opportunities to kind of accustom these dynamics, maybe not control, but kind of accustom, get familiar with these dynamics we live within. That's what you mean?
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Caroline. I feel fully heard.
Okay, thank you. So I will choose Eva. Eva, would you reflect me?
I'll be happy to, Caroline.
Okay. So I feel a little bit disoriented, stated, because I jump in the middle of the meeting, and so I don't know the whole thread of our today's talk. And I feel like I lost part of what you were saying, all of you. I just didn't hear that. So I feel kind of, I feel lack.
Luck? You mean?
Lack of something
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I missed something. Something.
Okay. Well, here I can talk for myself too, because I was just a little earlier than you. I was late too. And I hear you and I feel you say that you feel disoriented, jumping, feeling like you jumped in the middle and lost part of the ideas that you feel you're lacking the general idea of the meeting today.
Yeah. And well, for lack we recording, so I will have opportunity to listen to the meeting. I'm still thinking about the conflict as a part of culture of empathy. And actually, right now, I'm starting the project with few of my friends here in Poland. We call it, if I translate it into English, it will be a association or society of mutual help and solidarity economy. It's sort of, we're thinking about sort of cooperative mixture with culture of empathy, and empathy circles are part of this project.
So I hear you would like to focus on the word conflict, and you are starting a project in Poland with some friends. The best version of English translation was, as far as I could catch, Society of Solidarity Economy or Empathy.
We call it Association or Society of Mutual Help. Mutual help or mutual aid. Mutual aid and solidarity economy.
Okay. So I misheard that. So you're working on a project with your friends in Poland, and you're calling it as like Society of Mutual Help or Aid.
And solidarity economy. Those are two parts of the name. Okay. And it is a practical embodiment of the idea of culture of empathy, because we're talking a lot about culture of empathy, and we're trying to frame, build the frame, the social frame for the project. that will be mostly a cooperative, sort of cooperative. And it's obvious to me that conflict will appear, because conflicts are part of life and we need to find the way to deal with them.
So I hear you say conflict will appeal because you see conflict as like a part of the life or part of the deal in this group you are establishing with your friends. And with this group, you are aiming to build a frame of social project with practical embodiment of empathy and
Culture of empathy,
culture of empathy. And you are, I think, questioning on how to play with conflict, maybe. Maybe even dance with conflict, let's say. Let's make it a little exciting.
I buy it, this expression, dancing with conflict. Wrapping up, I think that we have to build the customs, I prefer to say customs, not rules, not principles, but customs that will let us to embrace conflicts, not to avoid them or to make them inflammable. So that's my idea. Okay.
Yeah, I heard you say you would like to build the customs and you didn't want to name customs as like rules or principles. It's more like an embracing of conflict. And I'm happy to sell you dance of conflict concept on that. Enjoy your dance.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Thank you. Are we out of time now? Or
we have about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I can continue?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. We have a new guest. Do we say hi? Hi.
Sev from
Carolina.
Switzerland, I believe.
No, it's not.
No?
It's Serb? Yeah.
Okay. Welcoming Sev. Is
Thank
it okay? So, are you familiar with Empathy Circle? Is it okay if
I might have misunderstood the time of the Empathy Circle. I thought it was 8:30 my time, but it must have been a mistake. I thought I was entering the facilitator.
That's in an hour. The facilitator group starts in an hour.
So I'm always 1 hour late or early, it seems. I don't know.
You're welcome to, we have another 20 minutes or so here if you're wanting to take part in the listening.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would you like to reflect? Would you reflect my ideas, Sev?
Sure. With pleasure.
Is it so, Sev? Your name?
Sev is my pseudo, yeah.
Okay.
My real name is Severine, but Sev is easier.
Okay. Thank you for the easier name. So we've been talking about empathy, circle of empathy, and how do we want to see it, and what is, and I think we are all 6 people now, 7 with you, we are all trying to understand what's an easier way to deal with conflict.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat what is the which way to deal with conflict? I didn't understand the word because the line was cut.
Okay, so I think in today's Empathy Circle, what I hear from all the friends here in this room, we are all trying to find a way to deal with different conflicts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I understood well, you said all of you, the 6 of you who have, 7 of you who have already shared about it, were wondering how to deal with conflict in empathy circles. Is that it?
Yeah. And I hear all of us, we all have different perspective of playing with the word conflict.
Yeah, so you hear from the others that everybody has a different way of dealing and playing with conflict.
Mm-hmm. I like the fact that Edwin was talking about defining, which is I find a need, but I also agree with Bill's opinion on not going so deep in defining and staying on the area, on a sharing circle.
Okay, so you were interested in Edwin's way of talking about defining the conflict, and you also liked the way Bill said it was also important not to share too deeply, to take too much time or go too deep into defining it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Yeah. And my hope, my experience this week was I was able to do a empathy circle with empathy conversation with a friend in Turkish, and I found myself more comfortable on sharing things in my mother language. And I today felt like, okay, so empathy circle conversation like this, I need to get more into the empathy circle language in English, and I think that will help me.
Okay, so
in the conversation.
So you had recently a circle with a friend in Turkish. It was more conversation, if I understood well.
Yeah.
Empathy conversation with a friend in Turkish, and you found it much easier in your mother tongue, and so now you think you have to practice in English the empathy circle language in English to be more at ease with it and practice it better.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, I just jumped into it. So, yeah, thank you for, well, I need to choose first a listener. Is Björn okay to be my listener?
I listen to you.
So I take the opportunity to thank you all to have welcomed me in the middle of the circle, and to Eva, who has summarized wonderfully what had been said before, so I don't have the feeling I'm a little lost, and also because English is not my mother tongue either, so it's a bit more acrobatic for me to be part of the empathy circle.
So I hear you saying that you feel now quite welcomed and settled after a couple of minutes of being a bit distracted by your time choice in terms of getting into the appointment, and you getting in a more comfortable position now, and have that feeling of being able to connect with us as well because of the summary of Eva.
Yeah, the connection is not very good for me. I need to move. I don't know if it's my problem or all of you's problem, but it stops sometimes. So I'm just gonna move a bit might be a little bit more noisy here because the kids are not asleep yet, but we're gonna make a try. So yeah. Well, I'm coming here today because Edwin suggested I'd come because I told him I had by message that I had practiced an empathy circle in a police station in December, and that was an interesting experience. So he said, "Oh, come and join us and tell us about it." So, but I'm not sure if this circle is the place where we're supposed to talk about these kind of things.
Regarding to Edwin's reaction, I assume that the reason why you are here to maybe share with us a little bit about your experience of talking about empathy circles in a police station. Yeah, you were wondering if this is the right place here to do today, and I assume that Edwin's reaction was, yeah, you're at the right place.
So, and talking about it now with you makes me think I should have tried to include the policemen in the empathy circles, but we didn't manage to do that. The geography of the place was not very convenient for that. So let me tell you about the setting of the thing is that there was a blockage in Lausanne in Switzerland where I had been, and then we blocked a street for a while, and there was singing and speeches and music and lots of things. It was on the 14th of December. There were lovely Christmas carols, very famous French Christmas carols that had been translated for XR, and it was really funny. But also, there was a lot of emotion. My son also sung because he's. We created a little song about children growing up and realizing that there was no future and stuff, and people were so emotional and cried, and so there was a lot in that moment. And then I hadn't planned to block. I was not a blocker. But then there were a few blockers, and two friends of mine were there, and I thought, okay, let's do it. So I went, and then we all ended up in the police station, and the policemen were very stressed out because we were many, and they had maybe I should stop because it's going to be too hard for you to summarize, right? And I'll continue later.
I was just about to interrupt you. Yeah, so what I hear from you, there's a lot of excitement regarding a recent activity, a blockage in Switzerland, and you would have loved to have that policeman here to maybe express his point of view as well regarding this event. And I also hear that there were at the same time there was some sort of stressful background, but on the other hand there was a lot of happiness and action behind that.
The only thing that I might not have explained properly is that I was going to talk to you about the empathy circle we did in the police station, and that's where I thought we should have included policemen, not here now today. I'm not sure you understood that right.
So I'm understanding that you're still wondering if this is the right time now that you can talk about this experience. Maybe it's because of lack of time or not the right place. So is that what you try to say?
Yeah. If I have more time, because actually it's taking a lot of time, right? That's what you said, Carolina. So I can think one more minute, or yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the thing is, because we had planned to practice empathy circles during the blockage, but we didn't have enough time because a policeman stopped us earlier than expected. I mean, you never know how much time you have when you block a street anyway. So so we all went to jail. We were 90 person in the post office, the police station, 50 of us in one big room outside. Very chilly place outside. But and then I suggested, let's try to debrief what happened in empathy circles, so you can practice it and you can get to know how it works. And I had prepared everything on a page with a summary in French. If you wish, I can also send it to you in French. You might need it for other people. On one page, all what the empathy circle is made for and stuff. But I didn't have it with me in jail. I only had my ID card, and that was all. And we were, at that time, we were only 20 of us. So we made a bit less than 20. We made 3 circles, and we tried the empathy circle practice, and I explained to them. One had already done it with me, and the other one I explained, and she is a psychiatrist, so she tried her own circle. So we were 3 facilitators. And it was a very interesting experience, except for the fact that the emotional level was really high. So I found it more difficult than now. We're sitting in our living room, and I mean, we might have had a tough day, but we didn't just, I mean, it's not like we just lived a trauma or something. So it was very emotional. So people were very avoidant of emotions, and my circle was only made with men, so I don't know if it has something to do with it, but they were very avoidant of the emotions. And but we could, you know, I expressed emotions a bit because I'm very emotional, and some others started then, and it turned around like that. We did only 2 minutes per person, and it was an interesting experience, and it made us feel there was something, you know, like you feel so close, and you feel like a family, like brothers and sisters, and you just feel like, you know, you're really, really close when you do that practice after such an emotional thing. It was interesting.
So you're saying that there was a lot of tension in that situation, and it was also very unfamiliar for you being in that environment. Were you saying that? And
yes, that was, I didn't say it, but it's true. No, the emotional level was because we had, it had been very emotional what happened. It was a bit conflictual with the police, who was very stressed out. We were scared, actually, and we were, I mean, most of us were in jail, in the police station for the first time, and it's not a very, I mean, all of us in that room were there for the first time. It's not very easy emotionally. That's what I meant.
So yeah, so it was mainly the very unfamiliar and new situation that you all together somehow created. So so the group of demonstrators, but also for the policemen.
Yeah.
So it was both sides, and this somehow connected you with the policemen as well. Did I understand that? So did you want to express that as well?
So what I previously tried to explain is that we could have also included, I mean, they would not have agreed, of course, but we could have told them, the policeman who was there, you know, checking if we needed to go to the toilet or whatever. We could have, you know, said, well, you're welcome if you want to come to our empathy circle. But of course he could not. He was working. He was staying there outside the room where we were locked in.
And you also said something about being scared. So there was also a really frightening situation that, yeah, was so that, and you wanted to express that the empathy circle really helped you to give you some ease as well.
Yeah, that's it. I also added, because the emotional level was so high after that conflictual situation and emotional situation, it was, there was a lot of avoidancy, you say that, about emotions, and people were a bit reluctant to really go into their emotions, because I think many people would have, cried and felt really bad. So we gave only 2 minutes per person, and they wouldn't take more because they were scared to be too emotional.
So you're also saying that because it was quite new to many of the participants, it was there was quite a lot of reluctance and avoidance, and so you are also expressing then that or you also want to tell us about the difficulties to make people speak up at the same time. Is it what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
So I want to keep us on time too. We have 10 minutes now. Can you stay for later? Come to report more on that. Like in half an hour, we'll have our facilitators group. So I'd really like to get into more of the details of how it all worked and the possibilities there. So I just wanted to kind of be able to kind of close here. Let me just